Hey everyone, welcome to episode 121 of the Lift Free and Diet Hard podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Coates, and I am, I think I have an emotional hangover. I'm tired from being at Coaching Con this weekend. A whole bunch of us were in Phoenix, really cool event, big event. I was there for pretty much 4 full days. And
Hmm.
often enough, you don't quite get enough sleep. And then you sometimes feel crushed after the fact because you get really built up and amped up for these things. And in the grand scheme of things, anybody who's listening for any real amount of time here knows how much I advocate how they can change your career. And I was also there with my friend Beth Feraco, who's my guest today. Beth wanted to attend, and I know you had a great time. We'll talk more about that. And for those of you guys who aren't super familiar with Beth, Beth is a nutrition and strength coach, and she's actually had a tremendous amount of success with kind of unleashing her authentic self on social media. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And she was so successful that she actually needed to start hiring a team around her, and it was sort of pushed into building a business. So I want to talk about that. So, but first of all, of course, welcome to the show. Glad to have you.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Good. Well, let's actually get right to it. One of my biggest pet peeves are shows that do 10 minutes of preamble and fluff or whatever. Usually it's two hosts kind of going back and forth. Then they get to the meat of it. I like cutting right to the chase. So we've talked a lot about this. You came off the gym floor. COVID starts, gym gets shut
Yes.
down. You're the trainer in the gym. I think a lot of people can relate to that. And you're pretty much going, all right, shit, what the hell do I do now? Right. And you
Hmm.
did something I think a lot of people probably find hard, uncomfortable, or haven't necessarily found it clicks yet, which is you just really lean into social media. You start posting consistently, I would say very aggressively with it. And that's TikTok, that's Instagram. And things grew quickly. I think, there's always timing with these things. And I think you definitely rode a wave with TikTok.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Um,
The
you know,
2020 TikTok wave where everyone went viral very quickly. Yeah. Those were the days.
saw that in 2017 with infographics back with Instagram.
Yeah.
And I mean, anyone who sits and listens to this go, oh, the time has passed, the opportunity has passed. I watched, a guy that I know who I used to mentor, and I will not take credit for this because this wasn't my strategy, but he went from 5,000 followers on Instagram to God over 500,000, I think it is right now. Yeah, 530,000 followers, just because he found a clever formula with humor, evidence-based training, and video, right? And
Hmm.
editing. And honestly, he just took right off. So there's still an opportunity with this stuff. But
Oh, yeah. I just yesterday, actually Sunday, when I was leaving, made a quick video at the condo I was staying in Arizona. And now the video is at 2.5 million. I've gained about 25,000 more followers on TikTok.
it's
Pretty
incredible.
crazy. Yeah. It only takes one.
And I've heard you and people who've done well like you say that, sometimes you put a lot of time, effort, thought, really work hard on editing something just right and it flops, but then you pull up the phone, you say something quick that pops to mind. It's raw,
Mhm.
it's raw. And those are sometimes the ones that do really well.
Yeah. I think a lot of people really overthink posting videos on social media. More. More than not, they do overthink it.
So this comes down to, I think, something that permeates our entire careers, but specifically as it relates to the shifts that you underwent. What attitudes and beliefs did you need to discard? Limiting beliefs about who you were, what
Mm.
you could do, or anything else in order to be able
Um,
to do this.
imposter syndrome is huge, right? And I think a lot of coaches, and including myself in the beginning, make content for other coaches.
Mm.
We're not helping other coaches. We want to help the general population, whoever your niche is, whoever you want to help. That should be what your video is geared toward. Not trying to impress coaches, because I've done it. It's like, oh my God, did I say that right? Is someone, is that person going to think that this is really horrible? Once you get rid of that, then you just feel a lot, better to be yourself. And being yourself is where it's at. Just authentically you, because those are the people that you want to attract. Like attracts like. You want to attract the clients that you want to help. And then if you're trying to be someone else, that's not going to, you're not going to attract the right people for you.
Mm. And you often, I mean, often may be a strong word, but you're sometimes criticized for swearing
Hmm.
or otherwise just being that authentic person. So what do you think about that? How do you deal with that?
You're not going to please everyone. You know, I think some people think I swear too much, and then some people think I don't swear enough. So it's, you know, you might as well just be you. And sometimes I do swear too much if I have a, you know, more caffeine, if I'm a little fired up, you know, the F bombs maybe flying around a little bit more, but fuck it. I just press send and it, you know, it goes because that was me at the moment. You know, I know the type of person I am. I'm a good person. I want to help people. And that's what's important. And other people see that too. And I think when see people know that you're being authentic, they like that.
For me, it's a bit of a red flag when I see coaches who spend too much time worrying about what other people are posting, but even worse, policing what other people are posting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this comes through, you know, various different lenses, belief systems, ideologies. And, you know, I tend to lean a little bit more towards the freedom of expression side of things. You know, I don't want people to get too carried away with that and the political tribes and what have you that it gets into. But as a singular principle, I think that within reason, outside of really shitty, hateful type crap, and again, you know, people have different definitions, that there's a concept creep, and everything all of a sudden now is, if you don't like what you hear, everything's hateful, which
Right.
I think we want to be careful with that sort of concept. But I'm a big believer that there are different messages that will resonate with different people. And
Absolutely.
I think there's the empathetic side of the spectrum, and I think there's the tough love side of the spectrum. And I think sometimes the the community on the empathetic side can get caught up in policing what the tough love side have to say, because they're sort of guarding and protecting the delicate people who need the empathy.
Right.
When I mean, I think ultimately people will gravitate where they probably need the messaging. If
Mm-hmm.
anybody follows a fellow T Nation writer, Tanner Shuck, Tanner, geez, he makes you look like, you know, really, really pillowy soft with how you approach things.
Really.
Tanner is blunt and he is aggressive with some of his messaging. And
Mm-hmm.
while I suspect a lot of the people that follow me, because I tend to be a little bit more down the middle, probably not all of them would necessarily go for Tanner's messaging. But I think what's really important is I'm okay with him being there, because I think there will be the type of person who gravitates to that. They need that tough love reminder. Natalia Mello Wilson has been a previous guest and a good friend. Natalia can get pretty tough love too, you know, no bullshit,
Mm-hmm.
no excuses, doesn't varnish her message. And, you know, do you have any thoughts on that? Because again, like I personally think that we're going to probably reach more people if we have, you know, different approaches, different authentic selves to share.
Mm-hmm. There's something for everyone, right? Everyone has different personalities. You know, not everyone's going to like me, and that's okay. Like I said, there's someone for everybody. You know, someone might like someone that talks like they're, you know, working for Disney or, you know, but here it's like, I'm not going to bullshit you. And it shows.
Right. And I mean, did Disney not pretty much scoop up, you know, Deadpool as a intellectual property, essentially?
Right.
So, you know, as long as they don't screw up Deadpool,
Or
you
like
know,
Mary Poppins and, you know, Dumbo and stuff like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, again, I want to come back to the whole point about, you know, making the mistake of trying to talk to impress other coaches, because I think you're
Mm-hmm.
right. Your mentor Jordan Syatt openly talks about how early in his career he was writing his articles to impress his mentor Eric Cressy, a lot of technical language, you know, high level training concepts.
Yeah.
And when I read stuff like that, you know, I see coaches doing it too, and I think, all right, yeah, no, you're speaking to the wrong audience. And it's no wonder that those coaches are struggling to pick up clients.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, you know, more thoughts on that. How do you get the person who's sitting here going, all right, how do I even know what to say for fear
Mm,
of, you know, Dr. Mike Isertel or Eric Cressy coming in and going, well, what you just said there is technically wrong.
right. I think going into your video of who can I help today, right? Rather than like how many likes and follows can I get? It's really because if you're in the nutrition and coaching business and strength coaching, we want to help people. So what can you do to help someone through video? What is your passion? You know, mine more is like mindset and nutrition. I do talk about strength training sometimes, but that's not like my number one because it's not something that I'm super passionate about. So I think it's important to lead your video with passion and who you want to help. I got a lot of my ideas from clients their check-ins. There's lots of, if someone's struggling with the scale, if someone's struggling with a relationship with food, whatever it may be, who can you help and who can you resonate to with your video is really like, go into that video doing that and don't overthink it. I think, it's okay to plan your videos, but you don't need to have like a fucking spreadsheet with, unless that's something that works for you. But sometimes I feel like that holds people back because they're like, well, maybe that's not perfect. Do you think that I need to show more of my body? And it's like, no, if we're not doing this for likes and follows, those people, viral videos aren't always great either because you're getting people from all avenues. If they're following you just because they liked your video, but they may not buy from you. So you have to like think about it like that. It's not about going viral. It's about really, in the end, who can you help today? Because if you help one person, you're doing a fucking great job.
I've heard it said that people who've developed large followings on TikTok have been have failed to mobilize people to buy their products, show up for in-person
Mhm.
events, etc. You built a business. We're going to talk about that after, off the back of very rapid growth on TikTok.
Mhm.
What's the difference between someone who is able to leverage that audience versus the people who are struggling? Because I'm of the understanding, given the nature of TikTok and the way you swipe through, people are rapid fire consuming the content, but they're not
Mhm.
necessarily developing the relationship with
Right.
the person making the content. How do you create that?
Good question. You need to go live a lot, right? You need to build a community. I've built a really strong community on both Instagram and TikTok because I communicate with my followers. I answer their questions. I may respond with to one of their comments with a video. You really need to engage with those people that are engaging with you because that is how you build community. You need to build trust with these people. They're not going to buy from you if they don't trust you. So I think that's one thing that I learned is, you have to communicate with your followers and going live, answering questions, answering DMs, and, engaging. You don't just post a video and hope for it to go viral and then don't comment or anything. You got to, engage if you want to build a business, if that's your ultimate goal.
And it's a shockingly simple answer.
Right?
And I guess that comes from a person who genuinely wants to help versus the person who is seeking the following
Validation.
because they're seeking the status. I talk about this a
Mhm.
lot. I mean, again, humans are wired to understand, perceive, look for status cues because it's part of how we survived in tribes, in our
Mhm.
early days, and it's how people navigate the world. But I also want to caution people on doing things solely for the goal of seeking status because, well, let's say you manage to grow a large following on TikTok and all of a sudden that validates you because it's giving you the status you've always craved. I mean, there's always the threat that TikTok gets outright banned, right? That's
Mhm.
that's something that the US keeps rattling sabers about, over broader political things. How about this? What do you say to the coach who is working on TikTok? It's their primary
Mhm.
platform, or maybe they're doing both TikTok and Instagram and doubling their content to it. What would you say if someone's worried about TikTok ultimately being banned, at least in, you say,
Ooh.
the US?
Create an email list. If you have not started an email list, you need to. I think that's because that's not going to go away. That's yours, right? Like all these platforms can literally go away any second. And also create that long form content, like writing articles, writing blog posts on your website. Those things are yours. I think that a lot of people don't do that. And, even like don't stick to one platform. I've built two platforms. One goes, that's fine. It's not fine, but yeah, it's going to have to be. But I have another platform. I have almost 20,000 people on my email list. So build that email list, give things away for free. If you have, do challenges, things like that. I remember at the beginning of TikTok, I was giving away free coaching. I would make videos. Hey, I'm giving away, like, answer this question. Uh, what do you want to be like? What is your best goal? I don't even know what I'm talking about. What is your goal? How can I help you answer this question? And I would pick one person and give them 3 months of coaching, and then they would end up signing on for longer. So I think that's important too. Giving away things for free, doing challenges. Yeah, building that email list. That's a number one.
this is, I mean, fairly classic stuff. Just the allure of the cheap, the quick and easy wins with social media, because social media is
Mhm.
engineered to keep you on there. So
Yeah.
how do you, with having built the business you have and the responsibility towards brand and engagement on social media and interaction, how do you find the time to respond to the comments on two platforms with, you know, a combined following of over 700,000 people,
Mhm.
do all of the things you're responsible for? And how do you create boundaries around what you are able to do and what you can't do?
Yeah, right now I can't answer everything, right? And that bothers me, but you have to pick and choose. Once you have like this many, I really have to pick and choose. I have to also cut myself off from answering them as well, because I can, be on my phone all day. And right now I am in a better space to answer more because now I've built a team. So my responsibilities are now solely marketing, social media, and running my coaches team. But now I have Hunter, who's doing the back office, the sales, and all the things that I was a one-stop show at one point. So I now have an assistant, and a lot of things are taken off my plate. So now I can focus on my community, answering questions, and helping people, apply for coaching and things like that.
So the boundaries, right? Actually,
That's
no.
a hard, that's a
Oh,
hard one. Boundaries with I have a hard time stepping away, and I know that sometimes I need to for my mental health, really. But I love what I do as well, but I know that there needs to be boundaries,
well,
especially when you have a family that's like, okay, get the fuck off the phone now. Where's
all
mom? Oh, she's on her phone.
for all the blessings that have
Mhm.
come from the explosion of social media, and you look back to where you were when you were starting to do this stuff, we know that a lot of coaches really look at this and go, oh, life would be so much better if I had the social media following. What weren't you prepared for? And what would you put back in the box if you had the ability to? The stuff that you just didn't anticipate, it's not necessarily good, and you would like to say, all right, I would like to go back to the way it was before.
Mm, good question. I think fast growth, like without being prepared, like, first you're making these videos, right? So do you have a way that that you're going to be able to help more than 10 people? Do you have your Google Sheets? Do you have your back office set up? And you don't necessarily have to have all that, right? But you need to have some kind of a base. Which I was lucky enough because I did. Because I started Jordan's mentorship, and I started, I had my, Google Sheets, and I had a way to check in with clients. I had my, check-in forms, my website builds, like all those things were kind of in place. So I think making sure that you have a website, you have a place where people can actually, apply for your coaching services, and you have all those kind of like little ducks in a row. I'm lucky enough also that I had Hunter, who lives near me, who was my boss, that got me into coaching in the first place, who now is my business partner. He helped me a lot. I have to say, I really had an advantage with that because he was a gym owner and he knew a lot of, things that I did not know.
Hmm. You mentioned Jordan's site, and I think Jordan's one of the key mentors in a lot of this stuff. He's definitely been a major influence on how I started approaching social media, which of course led to the consistency, which led to the growth.
Mm-hmm.
He is a great example of someone who came out of what I'll call the old world, the influence of, Eric Cressy's and a lot of the coaches that came up on T Nation who had singular brands. Now, Eric is also a physical gym owner. And these guys preached email lists. They were doing online coaching
Mm-hmm.
or online coaching platforms that you could use. They did the email and the Google and the spreadsheets,
Google Sheets. Yeah.
right?
Once you get to a certain number, you can't use Google Sheets anymore. But Google Sheets really, helped me start.
Good. So Jordan, of course, was writing articles for his website for a very long time before social media became a thing. He had his email list, and he even tells stories about how he was a little late on that one, but he still got it. And so when he started mentoring people to lean into social media growth and infographics in 2017, and then he saw its potential, he immediately turned around and followed his own advice and did it. And of course, that's the catalyst for the substantial Instagram growth, which is not the reason why everybody knows who Jordan is, but it definitely didn't hurt him along the way. And I think there are a cluster of coaches who came out of the same world who failed to embrace social media and are looking around now going, all right, what happened? Where are my invitations to speak at events? Why is my business not where it should be? Because they kind of got lost in the shuffle when it came to COVID, as so many people pushed into the online, and a lot of new, younger coaches have grown into brands via social media. So Jordan was ready and he was prepared.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say someone is still pushing really hard on social media. Do you still think that they absolutely right now need to put it's not even put a pause on it, but the website, the email list, that stuff now has to be absolute number one priority. It has to be in place.
Not necessarily, but I think a website is probably that. So you can actually start collecting email addresses. I think email addresses, yes, are important. And then I think a website, I think those two would be my top.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I got the website done first, and that then I had the link on there to sign up for my newsletter. So then I was be able to put that link in like my Instagram stories. See what happened first when I started collecting email addresses. I wasn't able to have, we just are now able to have the link, click this link in the stories.
Yeah.
I actually had to manually put all these email addresses that I got in my DMs. So I was like, hey, I'm running a challenge. I need your, whatever. I don't even remember what it was at this point. I need your email address so I can, we can do this challenge. And so I was hand putting those in. So everyone I think has access to the link now, but so that would be my thing would be get the website and get an access on your website to, sign up for your newsletter to get on their email list.
Whatever it takes to get those two things done. All right.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yes.
around, how you built the business. And I think, again, as I mentioned, you came out of that, gym world on the gym floor, like I did, like so many coaches who've probably been doing it as long as we have. I think, maybe the last few years, coaches entering the space may have been able to kind of skip that and have a little bit more of an initial online presence. But I know that from experience, we get stuck in this box. This is the way it's done. It's the way it's always been done, hourly session model, train the client, etc. And while I still believe there's a lot of good in that system, it can also get you stuck there. And it can be very hard to emotionally or physically grow out of it or learn other things. It's one of the reasons why I like being at events like this. It really push your boundaries on what you can do. And obviously, Coaching Con is backed by Jason Phillips' organization, NCI. And a lot of what they do is they teach a lot of scaling, hiring, business system type stuff. Now, you started that stuff before you went to this event. So what flipped? How did you actually decide, okay, I can't handle all this? And instead of just staying in the state of overwhelm or ultimately capping it and setting boundaries, you started hiring people.
Yeah.
I think that's a big deal for people. I mean, I have an emotional resistance to the idea of hiring an employee.
It
So
was
what
hard.
for you?
I think because I just couldn't take any more clients on as my own anymore. And I was starting an waiting list. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to be able to grow this way, but I want to grow. I don't want to fucking remain the same. I want to build a really big business here. I want to influence and help a lot of people, and I'm not going to be able to do it alone. So my first instinct was to go to Hunter and be like, you know what, I think I need to hire a coach. Do you know of anyone? And he was like, yeah, what about Justin? And me and Justin used to coach at the gym together. And I'm like, oh, perfect. He wasn't working at the gym anymore. And he was about to move to Wisconsin or something. And so he was my first coach on my team, and it was really awesome because I knew him. And from then it's like I hire people that I know or I've worked with, because for me, that's important, especially to be able to put my trust in my business to other coaches. So he was my first one, and then it went from there. Then he had too many. He's like, Beth, I can't take any more clients. And I'm like, well, shit. Okay. Let's look for another coach. And so it just so happened that my friend Christy, who I did the HMCC course, which is Casey Joe's mindset course, she kept asking me, if I was looking for anybody. And then it happened that I was. And so then I hired her, which is amazing. She's got a new master's in nutrition. So she's like my head nutrition coach. And then from there, Hunter started getting more involved, and he's, we decided to kind of go into the business together. And he's like, yeah, I can help, do the sales and things like that. He ended up hiring a GM for his gym so he can have more time to work with me. So then it just kind of sent for there. And then Christy got overwhelmed. And so we, started getting ahead of the game. We hired, a couple more coaches that I actually knew from the Jordan Science inner circle. So that worked out really well too.
So, I mean, some of them are obviously like local-ish to you, but some more are people you just know, and online. So therefore, you're not all in one physical place.
No, actually, Justin doesn't even, no one is near me anymore besides Hunter.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is there anything else about that experience, like how hard it was initially, any of the ideas about hiring someone you had to overcome? And here's a big one. The worry and the fear of you hire someone on and they're going to leave. So how do you make, this is the thing I think, I'm asking for me as well as a lot of
Yeah.
there's the challenge of, okay, I've always had this attitude, anyone that I would want to hire wouldn't need to work for me, right? Does that make sense? And therefore, the threshold about, what percentage you're keeping, what's the value to the person being under your umbrella? Are there any things about people, their personalities? For example, someone who really loves doing the work and coaching, but doesn't necessarily love the marketing, the brand, the media facing side of stuff. Are there any things to look for in someone to work with, both on the relationship side, but also like just how they are?
For me, it was like being very empathetic, personable, no bullshit, kind of the same values, as me. That's definitely what I looked for. And someone that I knew would be honest with me, and that would put their all in their coaching. And that just wanted to really help people. That was very important to me. Um, I have to say it was really fucking hard to hire people because, it's a representation of yourself. Don't get me wrong here. I went through and still go through a lot of like anxiety and stress about it. It's a lot better now. And I think what's important for me is that I make sure that my coaches are taken care of, because I used to be that coach, right? I want to make sure that they're getting all the support that they need, to actually be better coaches for our clients. So I also have a therapist that talks with our coaches once a month. We have like a little team meeting on the first of every month, and they ask the therapist any questions, that might help them, because, it's hard sometimes to be a coach to a lot of people. There's burnout and things like that. And, it can be mentally draining. You're taking on a lot of people when you're helping someone through, a lot of difficult times. And all you want to do is help. And sometimes you might have pushback or people are ghosting you. You need that support. So I made sure that they have the support they need. They get bonuses, things like that.
How do you incentivize someone to want to work within your company? Obviously, there's a quote cut of their work that goes to the company, only you. How do you create value for a coach to want to work with you and stay?
I think, first, if you are running an online business and you're a coach and you feel like this is super overwhelming, which I have a few coaches right now that actually had their online business, but they just did not want to do it alone. They want to just help people and not deal with all the other stuff that comes with it. So I think, if that's up your alley, taking all, like, you don't have to deal with any, onboarding, none of that stuff. If you were just handed a client and you're like, help this person, then you would be, good for me. That's only one requirement. There's a lot of other ones, but I think if you want to help someone without all the business stuff, I think going this route is a great place to go. And also, knowing that you're going to always grow. I want to make sure that my coaches know that there's always options for, to make more money, things like that, incentives, they get bonuses, for people, extending their coaching time. They get bonuses if they refer someone. They get literally paid for meetings. They get paid for literally everything extra that they do. And the coaches that I have now do things because they want to do them, because they know that they are thanked and they are supported for everything that they do for me does not go unnoticed. So now it's kind of like they just do these things. And I know I feel very lucky that I have these coaches that do that, but I also treat them very well. And I'd want to work for me too.
This lines up. That's good. This lines up with what I've seen with a lot of the coaches that came through Stronger You and Macros Inc. And I kind of look at those as a current example of what we're seeing. So before that, we had Precision Nutrition, Renaissance Periodization, I have these other companies that are fairly iconic. They've been around for a while. They sort of like created the model. And then there are other companies that have done a really good job of growing a fairly large brand, and they have large teams of coaches, smart visionary leaders. My friend Mike Dola, who was a recent guest. Now, Mike did ultimately sell Stronger You, but I know a lot of the coaches that have worked currently or used to work under that umbrella. And so again, it's been my experience. A lot of those coaches are people who either haven't loved the idea of leaning into their own social media brand presence, or have struggled with it perhaps, and it's just simply more fulfilling and easier to just take care of people and coach and help people, because that's
Yeah.
just like singular.
Most of my coaches don't have a huge social media, and that was another thing. They didn't want to do social media anymore. I mean, it's not for everyone. I get that. It's pretty intense, and it's a consistent thing that you have to be on top of. So yeah, if you don't want to do social media that much either, I think assistant coaching is another way to go. You don't have to worry about all that shit,
And social media can at times get exhausting. I mean, I will admit right now, I have been in a period of time where I've been under inspired in terms of I think you go through these, life gives you seasons, and you get tired of all the things you're trying to do. And of recent, I found it a little bit harder. I've also noticed it sort of gets discouraging when, I think it's a double-edged sword, where they make changes. Now, let's be honest, you can blame the algorithms all you want, but at the end of the day, you're creating the best stuff, and you also have an understanding about how these things work. There's a stronger pivot to video, then it's on you to actually stay on top of it. And I rode a really big wave, and I've noticed that there was a point where something changed. They announced a fairly major change, and it has definitely affected my levels of engagement, which of course you could take that one of two ways. I'm already busy and fulfilled with all these other things, so I've sort of taken a small step back, which of course then means I am not adapting yet. I'm working on it, but I haven't adapted to what the Instagram specifically now values. So there has been a change to the algorithm that we are aware of. We actually know that is now, punishing is too strong a word, but is not as good for the approach that I've used for a long time. So I have to adapt with the algorithm, which I am fully aware of. So I'm in control of that. Now, back to something else I want to ask too, is you're now a boss. You're now a business owner. You work with other people, you manage other people. Was there anything that you had to be aware of, change about yourself, be conscientious of, cautious with, because now it's no longer a one-woman show, but other people's livelihoods depend upon you, but also just in the way that you deal with them? Was there anything that you had to, any rough edges you had to soften?
I had to let go of some control and have someone that was better at certain things to do certain things. I think that's something that a lot of people have a hard time doing too, is delegating certain things to certain people. But I'm not good at sales. I'm not good at numbers. I'm good at creating content. I'm good at coaching, but I'm not good at a lot. I'm horrible at tech. So I let go of some of these things that I knew that would take me hours to figure out, which I would sit here and for hours be like, no, I can do it. No, but it would take me days, right? And I'm like, okay, Hunter, can you do this for me? He's like, sure. And he would do it in 5 minutes. So I think you have to let go of some of the things that that you're not good at, to have someone else do, so everything else can run more smoothly. And it took me a long time to figure that out. It took me a lot of hours of wasted fucking time for me to ask for help.
Maybe that's a big thing right there. The big takeaway is getting comfortable with the idea of asking for help.
Yeah.
I had the author Brad Stulberg, who is phenomenal. wrote a book called The Practice of Groundedness, and I recommend it to anybody. And he talks about a concept called heroic individualism, and in a sort of a bad way, and how we can really get caught up in the idea of we can and have to do it all. And we put this enormous pressure on ourselves, and we try to carry the weight of everything on our backs. And so once I got talking to him a little bit, me and Luca Hocevar, we jam on books all the time. And so I just assumed Luca had read this book, and he had something like, listen, dude, you need to read this book, because Luca's got people around him, and he's great at finding awesome people. But Luca has an ability to, forego sleep and just work and hustle nonstop. And, so Luca and I are kind of wired in a similar fashion. And again, I think you met Luca this weekend. Luca and I were there hanging out a lot. He was one of the speakers. And so I told him, listen, you got to read this book. So he's read this book. He's like, holy shit, it's like some tough love in this book. And of course, we each brought Brad onto our podcast to talk to him about these things. And it can be tough to let go of that need to do all the things, right? And be great at all the things. So that was a wake-up call. And we're always still a work in progress on these concepts.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Any other advice for anybody who is, maybe at that point where they can't do it all, they're struggling, maybe there's a little bit of burnout creeping in, they've been resisting the possibility of, it's not even necessarily hiring someone else, but at least outsourcing some things. Like I hired someone to develop my second website professionally. I hired someone to set up my email list services a while back. And, I've been talking to some people about, developing some video systems as well, which I eventually have to do more with. So anything to overcome that initial resistance?
I think just asking someone for help, right? Take that action. Like we say as coaches, action, results, motivation. You have to literally just act. And like, if that you're like, okay, I just can't do this anymore, you have to. What is the one thing that you really don't want to do anymore that's holding you back? That one thing that takes forever to do, start with that one thing. Like we tell our clients in nutrition, start with one thing, and then, master that one thing and move on. So ask that one person who that may be able to help you with those things that take you too long to figure out, and start there.
It's incredible how all the advice that we give to our clients, habit-based stuff, it perfectly parallels to business development in our careers. Almost
always. Yeah.
Beth, you're wonderful. I appreciate you coming on. Tell everybody where they can find more of Beth Feraco.
You can find me on TikTok or Instagram as Beth Feraco Fitness. And also on my website is bethferracofitness.com. And I also have a podcast called Cut the Crap with Beth and Matt, which is on Spotify and iTunes, anywhere you can watch a podcast or listen to a podcast.
And I guess you'll also be speaking at the Real Coaches Summit. Now that's what? That's
January of 2024.
So Aram has moved it ahead to January, has he? Okay. He had it at the beginning.
I think it was March this year, right?
Yeah, March.
Yeah.
He may be moving it out of the way of Raise the Bar, because Nick Lamb.
I'm hoping to get to that. I need to get to that. That's been on my bucket list, by the way, for a long time. So
Raise the Bar is wonderful. I'm speaking at it again next year. And
yay.
The plan is for February. So Aram, with the Real Coaches Summit, he had an incredible list. Eve Guzman, I think, were you just on Eve's podcast, or was
I was on her podcast yesterday?
Right, I saw that on your media. Eve is a recent guest. Guys, if you love Beth here, you got to check with Eve. If you are someone who has found this podcast through Beth's media, I would also say just go back to the recent episode with Eve Guzman, and you can check out the other people I've had on. If you're really interested in the development of the business side of stuff, I had Mike Dola and Nick Shaw on recently. So Mike, again, being the architect of Stronger You, Nick Shaw, one half of Renaissance Periodization, and both very good friends of mine. Love talking to those guys. And there's a lot of stuff, along the same sort of theme. Anyway, please, if you're a longtime listener, go check out what Beth is doing. Beth is going to be, speaking at events more and more, which I think is only a natural course of action. I'm excited to see how your business grows. And anybody else, again, listening, do the kind thing, do the share, do the subscribe, give it to someone who in your world you think this might be beneficial to. And again, if you're one of Beth's people, well, just take a scroll through who I've had on. You may find that you like a lot of my guests, a lot of the who's who of the industry. and you might stick around, but it's got to be earned every step of the way. Thanks again, everyone. Beth, thank you so much for coming on, and
Thank you.
we'll come back with another new episode next week with a great guest.